if nobody wants what you're selling, you're not going to sell a whole lot of it. And yet, there are a lot of folks in the college football world who I don't think understand that point, because the appetite for the playoff expanding much farther past 12 games is not all that large. I don't think there are just millions and millions of fans waiting for the college football playoff to expand to 16 teams, let alone 24 to 28 teams, which is what supposedly, reportedly, allegedly, the Big Ten is in the process of putting their ducks in a row to propose, to turn a playoff into a 24 to 28 team playoff. That sounds ridiculous to you? Good. It probably should. Because when you keep going down the list of how many teams are national championship caliber that are currently missing the playoffs in the 12-team playoff, let alone a 14 or 16 team, how many teams do you think could win the national championship that aren't in the playoff already? And that's the whole point of the playoff, is to determine a national champion. It shouldn't be to get as many games as possible that you can then sell to ESPN, TNT, Fox, CBS, NBC, etc. It shouldn't be that. It should be determining a champion. Now, I know that the argument against that is, well, then it should just be 2 teams. It should at most be 4 teams. And I disagree, because I don't think that you would find many folks who would argue with the fact that Ohio State was the best team from the first weekend in December through January in college football. I don't know how you could argue that. And in past playoffs, they wouldn't have gotten in, wouldn't have even sniffed it. Couldn't have even been an option. And so I think a 12-team playoff is probably the right number. 24 to 28 sucks. We don't even rank the top. We don't even rank the top 28. You mean to tell me damn near everybody in the top 25 is going to make the college football playoff under this proposal? That I think stinks. I don't know that when you get past roughly team 12, 13, 14, that you think that team could win 5 games and win the national championship. Now, I do think there is one positive out of the college football playoff expanding to 24 to 28 teams, and that was that the conference championship games would go away. That they just would, hey, you know what? Whoever's undefeated or whoever's the highest ranked team, or if there are enough teams that only lost 1 conference game, whatever the case may be, you all share the conference championship and we go about our merry way. I don't hate that. I think the conference championship games stink to begin with. I think that for the most part, they are glorified bowl games where if the idea of, and this is, an extreme scenario where back in the day, at one point, a 6-6 UCLA was in the conference championship in the Pac-12. If they had won the conference championship at 6 and they had won that game and been 7-6 at that point by playing in the conference championship game and beat somebody who was undefeated in their conference because of the division format, are they really the conference champion? That's a really stupid way to determine that, but that's neither here nor there. The idea that conference championship games are indicative or representative of what happened over the course of an entire season is stupid. I guess you could make the same argument for a playoff, though, so I understand that. If you can get some buys in there and you can get rid of the conference championship weekend and just go from, hey, you played the Saturday after Thanksgiving and you jump right into the playoff, I think that would be really popular, fun, entertaining, and exciting. But I don't think you're going to get a bunch of people who are just dying to see the number 24 ranked team in the country. I think that those folks already don't tune in when the number 24 ranked team in the country plays in the regular season, let alone in a playoff game. I just think if you're losing sight of the fact of what the playoff is supposed to be, and college football is in a spot where the only thing that matters is how much more money we can milk out of people, I think you're going to see a turned off audience. Nobody is asking for, pounding the table, demanding to see a 24 to 2018 playoff. You are a business. You are selling something to a consumer. And if the consumer doesn't want what you're selling, you can't just go, well, we're going to do it anyway, and you're going to like it. Because that's not how you stay in business for all that long. And so I understand, and really the argument, I think, from the Big Ten is, well, if we have a 24 to 2018 playoff, that means probably 7 of our teams deserve automatic bids to the playoff. And I'm an on-the-record hater of automatic bids for just about anybody other than the second or third best team in a conference. I can get on board with, in a 16-team playoff, that maybe the SEC and Big Ten, you could say there are 3 guaranteed spots. And even that, for me, is going too far. I think you need to get your ass on the field and earn it. The idea that the 7th best team in the Big Ten is automatically going to make the playoff is stupid. Poppycock, malarkey, balderdash. It is the college football equivalent of absolute bullshit. And I hate it to my core. And the idea that you're going to only angle for playoff expansion with the idea in mind that all it does is expand opportunities for my conference's teams to make the playoffs, I think sucks. With that said, I understand that is the commissioner's job, is to, at the end of the day, how do I make as much money for these folks as possible? How do I make sure that they are in the best position possible to win championships and make buku bucks? I just don't think that that's a great way to operate going forward. And if that's just me sitting here in this spare bedroom in my house bitching about it, I'll go down swinging on that fight. I just think that sucks. Do you know what else I think sucks? That we can't agree on basic facts anymore. That you can plug your ears and go, no, that's not true. You can bury your head in the sand. You can pretend as if things that are verifiably true are not true, because it might make my favorite team, university, college, area, political party or candidate, whatever the case may be, it might make me look bad by proxy because I like this person, that person, etc. There's copious amounts of evidence that Michigan cheated, that they did the things you're not supposed to do, you're not allowed to do. And to that point, went as far as to start chucking cell phones into ponds to avoid having that evidence, even more evidence, collected. And when the NCAA comes out with their report on Friday and says, hey, we found that, kind of beyond the shadow of a doubt, Michigan did all of the things that you thought they did. And we don't have even more evidence because they didn't participate in the investigation. They did not help. They didn't do the things that they're supposed to do and contractually bound to do. They didn't do them. And then Michigan fans get to tell you that they were completely exonerated. None of this ever happened. And we knew it was a witch hunt from the get-go. That sucks. Now, I don't want to get into the entire idea of whether or not, like, I've seen so many reactions to this that just like flat out piss me off, because on one hand, there was one reaction that said, you know, everybody now is going to know that Michigan cheated and it's going to taint their title forever. And that's how we're all going to remember it. I think that sucks, because the idea that, like, you know, O.J. Simpson should have went to prison for allegedly murdering those 2 people, but his standing in the court of public opinion, that's the real loss here. That's the real punishment, not, going to jail for the rest of his life or facing the death penalty. No. People looking at him funny when he goes into the restaurant, that's the real punishment. No, that's not how that works at all. The punishment is the punishment. Now I'm on the record, not the NCAA is going to swing the hammer. I told you for the last 2 years that this is bullshit, that nothing's ever going to happen. The idea that they're going to take the banner down and the championship's coming, that was never going to happen. But at the same time, and I had a tweet that went somewhat viral on this, is that the NCAA essentially said, we're not going to punish the current players by giving them a bowl ban, taking scholarships away. And I said on Thursday, I don't like scholarship reductions because that means fewer kids get to go to college for free. And I think that especially sucks. But the idea that we're not going to punish the current staff, the current players due to the past transgressions of past players, past staff, etc. So there is going to be no bowl ban. While you are simultaneously giving Akron a bowl ban because of the past actions of their players and coaches, I think sucks. It's just everything about the response from the NCAA stinks. It was essentially, we're going to lobby the best punishment that we can so you don't sue us. And then Michigan was like, we're going to appeal this. And it certainly appears as if Michigan's biggest gripe with the NCAA investigation / punishment is they don't even have any evidence on us. The fact that the NCAA doesn't have evidence is because you deleted the evidence. You destroyed it. You didn't get the evidence you were supposed to get. That is a hell of a defense. It's truly almost ballsy. I mean, it's not almost ballsy. It is ballsy to say they don't even have any evidence on us when the NCAA's argument is you destroyed it. You made sure it no longer exists. I can't wait to see how that plays out, to tell you the truth, because I thought on Thursday after I recorded the podcast, I thought, okay, this is the kind of the end of the story, right? Like, I can't imagine a scenario where we continue talking about the Michigan sign stealing allegations after the punishment comes out. And that was probably a little short-sighted because there was always going to be reactions to the reaction, right? Like, there was always going to be Michigan fans who will tell you, we're completely exonerated, didn't do anything. 2023 champs, team 144, baby. It's like, well, wait a second. No, that's not what happened at all. Your coach got another 10-year show cause. Baylor's basketball coach knew that one of his players murdered another player, and he got a 10-year show cause. Your coach got found to be essentially the biggest cheater, the biggest who gives a damn about the rules coach in all of NCAA history. And then the reaction is completely exonerated. I told you we didn't do anything wrong. I think that sucks. And I think that the NCAA is toothless as it is, probably did the one thing that they could try to do to deter any future cheating, anything like that, is hit people in their pocketbooks. What Michigan got fined is not by any stretch of the imagination a small amount of money. You can argue that it is. Any number that has 2 digits followed by million is a lot of money. But if the return argument is, would you pay a $20 million fine in exchange for a national championship? Because that's kind of what the argument boils down to. Would you pay a $20 million fine for a national championship? There are like 100 programs in college football, probably 136 to tell you the truth, that would find a way to say, well, hell yeah, I would. Yeah, undoubtedly. Without question. And that's the part that I think probably sucks the most, is that, like, if that's the trade-off, is as long as your staff bails before the punishment can actually be lobbed, can be put on you, because, and I think this is probably right, by the way, that the NCAA says, we're not going to punish the current players. Now, I think there's an argument to be made there that current players came in knowing either that they participated in it or were recruited and knew that there was kind of a black cloud hanging over the program and that this might be something that comes down the line at some point. That's neither here nor there. The reaction from so many different fan bases, including the Ohio State fan base, I think has been somewhat unreasonable, because I have an older sister and a younger brother. I'm the middle child. My older sister did not have the same parents that I had. My younger brother did not have the same parents that I had and didn't have the same parents my older sister had. My younger brother's parents were not the same. Even though we're all the same, got the same parents, same people, they're drastically different. My sister wasn't allowed to go out and do anything on a school night. I was. My brother couldn't because he's a loser, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's the same thing with the NCAA. The NCAA in 2010, 2012 is drastically different than the NCAA of 2025. And to try to compare those eras, I don't think does anybody any good. Does it suck that Reggie Bush got his Heisman taken away? Yes. Does it suck that Ohio State couldn't go to the BCS National Championship game in 2012 because they had players trade some trinkets for tattoos? Absolutely. That sucks. But those were the rules at the time. And at the same time, the rules at the time were you can't go pre-scout your opponents in person, record their signals, come back, decipher them, and then stand on the sidelines and tell your offensive and defensive coordinators what exact play was coming up next. Michigan did it anyway, and their punishment was you don't get playoff money for the next 2 years when you probably weren't going to make the playoff for the next 2 years. It ends up being a $20 million fine at the end of the day for what level of cheating, impropriety, whatever word you want to use, depends on your allegiances. Some will tell you that it is just a step shy of players using performance-enhancing drugs, and you know what about it. And others will tell you, oh, it didn't mean anything. The idea that you know what the other team is going to do exactly doesn't help you win a football game. I think that there's probably, it's reasonable to fall somewhere in the middle of that. But at the end of the day, that's the punishment, is we're going to take a couple dozen $1 million from you, and we'll call it a day. And that seems like a somewhat fair punishment. And yet, Michigan is going to appeal that. And I find that just truly fascinating. And I can't wait to hear the argument for, you guys don't have any evidence on us. And what the reaction to that is when the NCAA says, you failed to give us evidence. You let your people destroy evidence. You're on the record. Sharon Moore is on the record proven to have deleted evidence directly related to this case. And yet, there's a subsection of that fan base, and that university maybe as a whole will tell you, didn't do anything wrong. Didn't matter. Won it fair and square, baby. And I think that sucks. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.